On this month's Knife Care Masterclass, I'm going to show you how to use what I think is the best knife sharpener on the market. It's the fastest, it'll give you the sharpest edges the most consistently, and that is this Ken Onion Worksharp. I didn't get paid to do this video, I just think it's the best. It's very good for sharpening inside curves on karambits, regular knife shapes, recurve knife shapes. You can even sharpen lawnmower blades and axes with this thing. Super versatile. You can do a lot with it and you can get razor sharp edges every time. I'm first going to go over how to adjust this thing, and then we're going to go over how to use it in a bunch of different circumstances. We're going to use it with and without the guides. I like to use it without the guides because I've used it so much these mainly get in my way, but I'll show you how to use them anyway. So the first thing you need to know before you even start using this thing is that you're going to want different belts than it comes with. So these things come with some 240 grit belts, they come with some 800 grit belts, and they come with some 5,000 grit belts. What you're going to need is some 400 grit belts. So these 240 grit belts are far too aggressive to use to sharpen your pocket knives with. If you use them, you're going to grind off way too much metal way too quickly, and you're going to wear out your knives super fast. I do almost all my sharpening starting with a 400 grit belt. There are links down in the description if you want to find out what these look like, where to get them, that sort of thing. So let's talk about how to adjust the machine itself. First of all, setup. To get the belts on and off, you're going to need to push in on this bottom pulley, and then you can slide the belt on and off. So you'll put the belt on the bottom pulley here and on this other bottom pulley, and then push up on the pulley to get it over the top, and then let go. This lever here adjusts where the belt tracks. So if I pull this trigger, you can see my belt is tracking a little bit off center toward the outside there. If I slide this yellow slider forward and then I turn it back on, you can see that pulls it right back toward the center of the pulley so that my belt won't fall off. If you're sharpening knives and setting this thing on a table, you're going to want this guide sitting upright. If you're sharpening a lawnmower blade or something, you're going to want it to be more at an angle. So if you push this yellow lever and then twist the whole thing, it will then lock back into place in a position where you can get this underneath a lawnmower deck or something like that. Other adjustments include the speed here. This knob will let you run it at a higher or lower speed. The trigger does adjust, so if you pull it a little bit, it goes slow, and pull it harder, and it goes faster. I usually have it on some of the slower settings because you don't really need a lot of speed on this. That's about where I usually run it. This is a lock, so if I pull the trigger and push the button, it stays on. That's useful because some people use these, like me, to grind blades occasionally or grind handle material, fine sanding. That lock can be useful for that. This is the angle guide. I don't use it, but I'm going to show you how to put it on here. It slides down this rail on the back of the sharpener, and that screw at the bottom can be tightened to hold it on. It shoves down and it kind of clicks into place like so. And then turning this knob changes the angle of these wings on the outside. So the further out you turn it, and then it goes kind of back in. So what you're looking at is this is the guide mark. So this would be a 15-degree cutting angle. That would be 20 degrees. This would be 25, and this would be 30. And that is used in conjunction with this edge guide roller on the bottom. So to get this back into position, you're going to pull out on it and twist it back into place. And then that is what you set the edge of your knife on as you're sharpening. The edge guide is designed to take the edge of your blade, and when you have the flat of the blade along this flat spot on the edge guide right here, it's supposed to change the angle of your blade so that the belt matches up with this beveled portion of the blade right here on the edge. And that's what you're changing when you're changing the angle of this edge guide, is you're changing what angle the blade meets the belt at, so you can get the finest edge possible And that is how you're going to change that so that it lines up. Again, I don't like this edge guide. The edge rolls then along that roller and maintains its alignment with the belt. The instructions will tell you when you're doing this to pull the blade through once this way and then go along and pull it through the other side. You do not want to do that because the belt on this contraption spins this way. If you put the blade edge into the belt here and it's not absolutely perfectly lined up, you're going to cut this belt with the blade. So what you actually want to do is pull the blade through in this direction and then flip it around and pull it through in the other direction on the same side of the belt, always on this side. And that way you're not going to cut the belts and cause them to fly out and hit you in the face. I've done it before. Trust me, it's not an experience that I want to repeat. I'm going to run this at a very low speed. I'm turning the speed all the way down so that you can see this as I do it without going too fast and damaging anything. So I'm putting this right on the upright edge guide here. And you always want to start at the base of the blade. If you start the belt running at the tip of the blade, you're going to round off your tip. So you always want to start at the base of the blade when you fit your edge in there. There's one pass, and then I'm going to flip it the other way for the next pass. Now you're seeing, I made a small mistake there, and I want to point it out. When you're pulling the knife through the belt, I know this is the wrong side, but I want the camera to see it. As I'm pulling that knife, getting towards the point, I only want to pull the point until the point just gets onto the edge of the belt right here. If you pull the point halfway across the belt like this, what you'll end up doing is that belt flexes. So it bends and it moves as it's sharpening, and that belt will wrap around the edge of the knife this way, and it'll round off your point. So if you want to keep the points of your knives nice and sharp, you only want to pull them until they just get onto the very edge of the belt and basically line up with the far edge of the belt, not pull them all the way across. This knife is pretty sharp to start with, so it's not taking too many pulls through to get this where I want it to be. Now, as you can tell, it's pretty hard for me to see everything that's going on. And you're also seeing that I'm only starting the belt once I have the blade in position. What you do not want to do is you don't want to hold the blade in one position on that belt. You want to keep it moving at an even rate to take an even amount of steel off of the entire edge. If you leave the belt in one spot, it's going to grind that spot down and you're going to end up with a divot in your edge. So you have to keep it moving at a constant pace. That's one reason that I'm not a huge fan of these guides, because they're fiddly to use and they kind of get in the way. What I've got going on now, if I run my finger down the edge of this blade, hear that little click? I've got a small burr that's run over onto this side, and it's all the way up and down the blade. What that means is that I have sharpened the entire edge of the blade enough that I've got it down to a wire edge. And that's okay, because it means I've sharpened the whole thing and I don't have any dull spots or divots in the blade that still need sharpened. I like to deburr my edges at this point. You can do that with a belt lying on a table, or you can do it if you don't have the guides on here, or you can do it with a ceramic knife sharpener. I'm going to show it with a ceramic. Actually, no, I'm going to show you how to do it the way I normally do it. So normally the way I would do this is pull this off, turn the edge guide out of the way, and then all you're going to do is, without turning the machine on, you're going to gently take that edge down the belt a few times. Do it on both sides to keep it even. But what you're looking for is that wire edge to go away. And when it does go away, you'll be able to run your fingernail down there and it won't catch. I still got a little bit of a catch there, so I need a few more passes to get it to go away. Okay, so now I have dispensed with my wire edge. The edge is perfectly V-shaped now, and it doesn't have a little wire that's sticking over the edge like this. And that means I'm ready to go down in grit to the next belt. So next, I'm going to go to my 1000 grit belt. Put it on this way. Again, shoving that pulley back up here to get it over there. We'll keep using the guide for now. I'm going to show you how to not use the guide with a next knife, because I honestly think that's easier and it's definitely faster. So same thing, turning it on and then getting it down on there, and then, or sorry, getting it ready first, and then turning the belt on and pulling it, and then stopping before I go off the end. And then the other direction, same thing. And what you're noticing is I'm hitting the handle on this side. So because I can only go straight through, this is stopping me from, the handle's hitting there. It's stopping me from getting the full edge on this side. That's one reason why I like to do this without the guides, but we're demonstrating the guides right now, so I'll finish this knife this way. It doesn't take too many passes on the finer belts. That's already getting nice and sharp. I'll do a couple more. And now we are ready for the 5000 grit belt. 5000 grit belt is the same thing. The only difference is as you go down to this fine of a belt, you're only going to make single passes in each direction. And I'm going to take this off because this is really annoying me. So you're going to go once this way, and go back and forth. If I don't have the guide on, what it allows me to do is tilt the handle this way. So now if you look at the back side, now I'm no longer going to be hitting the handle on the belt, right? Because I can tilt the belt out of the way instead of having it straight up and down. So straight up and down, that belt hits the handle before I run out of edge. If I tilt it this way, you can see I can now get the edge all the way up onto that blade without hitting the handle on the back side like this. So now I can tilt it full stripe, switch sides, same thing, back and forth like that. You can also run this at a higher speed. And that now is a knife that was pretty dull going into this. This knife is now super sharp. So quick sharpening on a large kitchen knife. Now I'm going to show you how to do this without the guides because it's a whole lot easier. Here we have another kitchen knife that is in desperate need of sharpening. Very dull. I can run my finger along that very easily without being in danger. So now I've got the 400 grit belt on here. I'm going to show you how I like to do this without the guides. So again, I'm still matching the angle of the knife to the belt, but I'm doing it by eye this time. So you can see how there's a little gap between the blade edge and the belt there. I'm going to turn this just until it makes contact. And you can see between the blade and the belt, this gap here. you can get a feel for how big that gap needs to be to get different blade angles. I'm so used to doing a 15-degree or 20-degree angle that I really just kind of know where they are, and I recommend you learn that. Because these belts are flexible, if you run them at a low speed, it's actually pretty forgiving and you won't really mess up your edge because it's going to give you that apple seed kind of edge. So you match the edge visually to the belt. You can tilt the knife, like I said, to get around the handle, which this is where the sharpener really comes in handy for sharpening karambits and things like that, because you can really tilt it around and make use of that flexible belt to get around that inside curve very easily. So this way I'm tilting the knife just a little bit. Now I'm going to start it first because I know exactly when this blade is going to hit the edge, and then I can slowly pull it across at a nice even rate. And as I'm doing this, I'm looking down at the angle. So I'm looking at it this way with my eyes so I can see that I'm maintaining the same angle through that whole pull. And now you're going to do the same number of strokes on the other side. Already getting quite a bit sharper. I'm going to do a few more on this, and then we'll do the 800, and then we'll do the 5000. I'm also going to show you my hand position on this because I don't switch hands as I do this each side. So I do one stroke this way, and then I turn my hands this way and I do the other side. So you can go back and forth without switching hands. Also, now you'll notice I'm only doing one stroke per side. And that's because I've gotten down to the point where this knife is pretty sharp with the 400 grit belt. And I'm ready to go up to the 800 grit belt. And if I did more than one stroke, I would just be taking my knife edge down unevenly and working it back and forth in a way that I don't want. Now I'm down to the 5000 grit belt, and this one's a lot more forgiving. It's so flexible and the grit is so mild that you can go back and forth pretty aggressively on this and it won't damage your edge and you'll still get a really sharp edge. Some people are going to ask about stropping. You can still strop with an 8 or 10,000 grit on these, but this is going to get you pretty much like a strop would because that's already 5,000 grit. So this is basically a mechanical strop that works a lot faster. Let's see how sharp we are here. Oh yeah, so very sharp now. Really, yeah, we're in the shaving sharp range now. Definitely quick and easy to get there. That is how you would use a Worksharp, the fast way, the easy way, and I think the more reliable way once you learn how to do it. I also want to quickly show you how to use this on a lawnmower. So if you're doing an axe or something, it's going to be the same technique, except for your axe head is obviously going to have a lot steeper of a bevel, so you're going to be more at an angle like this when you're sharpening an axe. Not really anything different about that. Just go down the grits. Count your strokes side to side on the knife so you don't grind one side way down like this. So you want 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, and then you'll slowly get sharper as you go down. Let's take a quick look at how to do a lawnmower blade. A quick word about mower blade sharpening. You can do most of your sharpening the way I'm showing you now, but once a summer or so, you want to have the blade taken off and balanced so that you don't accidentally grind too much off of one side of the blade and not enough off the other. and make the blade unbalanced. That can be very dangerous. So I'm going to zoom in here and show you what I'm doing is I'm going to adjust the angle of this by pushing on that lever. And I'm going to put it in the most tilted this way position. What that allows me to do is get behind this mower blade like this and match the angle of the blade this way so that I am getting a good angle, because you want to sharpen the top side and not so much the bottom side on the mower blade. So here we go. All right, that was 10 back and forth. Now I'm doing the other side. So you keep doing that. Again, I'm only using 240 and 400 grit on this because you don't need this to be razor sharp. You can even use an 80 or 60 grit belt on this to really get down through there quickly. And then that's how you can sharpen a mower blade without moving it off the mower with your Worksharp. Also, let's quickly talk about a karambit or a recurve style blade that has an inward curve to it this way. Those are notoriously difficult to sharpen on a whetstone. Super easy on the Worksharp. You're just going to do the same thing, match your angle, and then you're going to sweep the blade around that curve. I actually recommend using the narrower 1/2 inch belts for this because they're going to get inside that curve easier. And then switch sides. Again, just barely getting that tip onto the edge of the belt, like that. Even strokes back and forth. Super easy to get inside of a difficult blade shape like that. Same thing on the amphibian here. It sweeps around that recurve. Super easy. No difficulty. No difficulty at all going from one type of the curve to the other type of the curve. This is definitely the best type of sharpener to use for that. That is all about how to use my favorite sharpening system, the Worksharp Ken Onion. There are other versions of this. The Worksharp knife and tool sharpener is a little cheaper. This one, however, lasts a lot longer. I actually wore out one of those before I got this one. So you do want the better version. I will put where to find it in the description. Hopefully that will get you through 99% of your sharpening. Pretty much anything you don't actually need a water stone for, you can do with this. So if you have one of these and you have a water stone, you are set for all your sharpening needs.